Hi, everybody. Welcome to class here on finishing up on our course on essence of True Eloquence. In particular, taking and discussing a lot of the notes from Asian Classic Institute's course number 15. So we've got a few more episodes left here before we're finished this. And we're just looking at discussion of Tsongkhapa's analysis and discussion and sort of a presentation of the relevance of the mind-only school of emptiness and how that sort of dovetails into the Madhyamika, in particular the Madhyamika Prasangika or middle way consequentialist school on emptiness, to present sort of his understand the best takeaway of how to meditate on emptiness to liberate yourself from samsara. So sorry about the long time between this, sort of the length of time between this episode, sort of class that I've done this recording in the past one. I've just been super busy flying, had a really, really crazy month, and just been home and taking care of my elderly mother. So it's just been pretty busy. Samsara has been pretty busy, lots of obstacles and stuff. So happy to be back here and hoping to have a live class here in Nelson soon. So let's get started. Reciting the essence of Wisdom Sutra. Homage. So this is Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra here. Homage to the profession of wisdom of the Blessed Mother. Thus I've heard, at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgiri and mass vultures mountain, together created assembly of monks and nuns, created assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless excess of a phenomenon called profound illumination. At that time also the spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, was looking perfectly at the practice of profound profession of wisdom, looking perfectly also at the five aggregates being empty of mere existence. Then through the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage with the practice of profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequent looking perfectly and correctly at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is none other than form, and form is none other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics, do not produce and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, and no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, so forth, up to no mind element, a mentality, no mind element, and up to no mental, element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, and no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and bind the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear, passing under and beyond perversity to attain the final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas reside perfectly in three times. Having relied upon the perfection of wisdom became manifest, complete. Buddha is in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal and unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering since its false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tayatam Gata Gata Paragata Parasamkati Bodhisoha. Shariputra, bodhisattva, great being, should train the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration, said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, that he'd spoken well. Good, no son, learn just like that, since it's like that, just as you revealed. In that way, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and Tathagata will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, and the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Okay, so starting your meditation now, again in Lagema, let's just take a moment to meditate here, relax our body, get a straight spine, and feel that we're seated in a wide open space, ground like lapis lazuli, soft and smooth, warm, easy to touch, be comfortable on. Beautiful dome of a blue, cloudless sky, bright blue, cloudless sky above us. And we're surrounded by all sentient beings, the six realms of psychic existence. So Mother on the left, Father on the right, people we love the most to support behind us, and people we like the least or have issues with in front of us as objects of our practice, our compassion, healing. And going up from there, people from all over the world, all places, all included, animals and sort of natural beings, sort of the animal realm, or sort of the natural environment. We can think of all the different kinds of animals, insects, even trees and plants and so forth. All these beings are with us. Countless beings in the spirit realm as well. Spirit world has all different dimensions, like the elemental planes, ethereal and astral and so forth. They're all here. Celestial beings like gods and demigods. And countless beings in lower states of rebirth. You can think of preta beings and hell beings. Okay, so in the sky above us, we start to see just like beautiful image reflected on water. We're starting to see Ganden Pure Land, or Tashita Pure Land, Pure Land of all the universal Buddhas, as well as the Buddha of wisdom, Manjushri. In this beautiful land of lakes and forests and mountains and so forth, we have a little monastic, sort of almost like sort of spiritual town with all different temples and shrines and so forth. And we can just feel in it, they're all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, yogis and yoginis, gods and goddesses, and monks and nuns, yogis and yoginis, like Nagpas and Nagmas and so forth, all of them here, meditating and studying and writing Dharma books and debating and so forth. In the center of the huge cathedral, in the center of town, in it, the doors are open, we can see is the fifth universal Buddha, Buddha Maitreya, Buddha of loving kindness. Beautiful golden energy body in a crown, seated in a chair, holding two white lotuses. On his right, founder of the Old Kadampa school of Buddhism in Tibet, Atisha. And on his left, founder of the New Kadampa school, our school, the Gelugpa school, Je Tsongkhapa. We can just look at Maitreya's heart, and from a golden eternal knot symbol, beautiful clouds start to appear, and on it is Je Tsongkhapa with his two students, Japa Gyatso and Kedrupje. So all three wear the three robes of a monk in yellow pandas cat in lotus position. Je Tsongkhapa is holding two white lotuses with at his heart, that sort of stems at his heart with the turning the wheel of Dharma mudra. And on his right shoulder is a flaming sword, left shoulder is the Prajnaparamita text, 100,000 lines. And then his other students, Japa Gyatso and Kedrupje, are holding texts in their left hand, their right hand is in the teaching mudra at their heart. And in particular, let's just focus on Je Tsongkhapa's heart. In this case, we're going to visualize Buddha's higher form, tantric form, called Conqueror Vajradhara, who has a beautiful sapphire blue body in lotus position, with his arms crossed, holding a bell in his left hand, and Dorje or Vajra scepter in his right, wearing a crown, beautiful silks and jewelry. And he has a blue Hum letter, H-U-M, in his heart. You can visualize that, Tibetan or Sanskrit, or just the letters, English letters, H-U-M. That's the vibration of the Dharmakaya mind, or Buddha's wisdom truth body. And soft rainbow lights of white, blue, green, yellow, and red are sort of going out like a globe in all directions here. So taking refuge from our hearts, I and all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Generating bodhicitta through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. So taking refuge in particular three jewels, and really taking refuge in the Dharma jewel in particular, which is in an ultimate sense, our wisdom realizing emptiness. That's what we're really taking refuge in as the supreme medicine for all of our suffering, and allowing us to leave this world of suffering, this one experience. And our intention, setting our intention bodhicitta, may we do this to liberate all sentient beings. May we do this that we become enlightened, like a diamond angel and just be able to teach emptiness, the same medicine, this same truth, sort of reveal the same secret to all sentient beings without exception, that they all reach the same state and escape suffering. So setting our view and our intention here. For immeasurables, generating love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, may all beings have happiness and its causes. May all beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all beings constantly dwell in joy, transcending sorrow. May all beings dwell in equal love for both those close and distant. Invoking Je Tsongkhapa and its two students here. From the heart of the protector hundreds of deities of the joyful land, to the peak of the clouds, like a cluster of fresh white curd. O no lo Sendrapa, King of the Dharma, please come to the space together with your two chief disciples. In the space before me, in a lion throne, lotus and moon, the venerable Guru smiled with delight. Supreme field of merit from my mind of faith, please remain for 100 days to spread the teachings, so we can just feel, like I would say, like rolling out a yoga mat here, just the clouds start to unroll and bring Je Tsongkhapa and his two students closer to us. So when we just look up now, we see the three of them, beautiful massive white clouds, and then just sort of like a little train of clouds going backward into Maitreya's heart. So we can sort of look on the other side of Je Tsongkhapa into Tashita Pure Land, Ganden Pure Land, and the future Buddha, Buddha Maitreya. So just feeling that Je Tsongkhapa is especially connected, and the teachings are connected with bringing the future Buddha here to earth. And teach, in particular, the teachings of love, loving kindness, and bodhicitta. Your minds of wisdom realize the full extent of objects of knowledge. Your eloquent speech is the ear organ of the fortunate. Your beautiful bodies are ablaze with the glory of renown. I prostrate to you, whom to see, to hear, remember so meaningful. Pleasing water offerings, various flowers, sweet-smelling incense, light, scented water, and so forth. A vast cloud of offerings, both set out and imagined, I offer you supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtues of body, speech, and mind have accumulated this time without beginning. Especially transgressions of my three vows, with great remorse I confess each one from the depths of my heart. In this degenerate age, you strove for much learning and accomplishment. Abandoning the 8 worldly concerns, you made your leisure and endowment meaningful. Protect her from the very depths of my heart, and rejoice in the great wave of your deeds. From billowy clouds of wisdom and compassion, the space of your enlightened minds, venerable and holy gurus, please send down a rain of vast, profound dharma, appropriate disciples of this world. May your Vajra body, created from the purity of clear light, free the rising setting of cyclic existence, but visible to the ordinary viewer only in its unsubtle physical form, stand unchanging without waiting till samsara ends. Through the virtues I've accumulated here, the teachings and all beings receive every benefit, especially may the essence of the teachings of Lama Je Tsongkhapa shine forever. Holding a beautiful purified universe at our hearts here, short mandala offering. This mandala's base, built on a base resplendent with flowers, saffron, water, and incense, adorned with Mount Meru, the four lands, the sun and the full moon. By offering this pure mandala to you, assembly of Buddhas here before me, may all living beings experience pure happiness and be reborn in the pure lands. We send forth this jewel mandala to you, precious Gurus, Ammanam Guru Radha Mandala community. Amen. So we can just feel by opening our hearts here and offering everything beautiful and good, just the whole universe transformed into something pure and blissful. Just this really opening our heart, giving us a mind of generosity. We offer this to the merit field. Now with that, just feel that just like sunshine coming down from Buddha Maitreya, from Je Tsongkhapa and its two students, Chapa Gyatso and Khedrubje. All this sort of sunshine of positive energy is going to all sentient beings, just making them all glow around us. In particular with us, we could just feel that from the hearts of the three gurus here, just little tubes of light like little needles come down and join, and then once they reach the top of our head, beautiful golden nectar and light is coming into our bodies. And again, just like with all sentient beings, just flushing away all shadows and stains and negative energy and so forth, and just making us all bright like little stars. So it's a field of stars here, countless stars. Just really activating our Buddha nature, so to speak. And again, if you like, you can visualize inside the light little tiny pieces of energy being for the 7 wisdoms that we get from Buddha Manjushri. So we can just feel, clear wisdom, quick wisdom, great wisdom, wisdom for studying, composing Dharma texts, debating, and so forth. All these kinds of wisdoms for really understanding emptiness in symbolic forms, such as little tiny Buddha Maitreyas and Manjushris and so forth floating around in us. The mantra Murapatsanadi, mantra, little flaming swords, wheels of swords turning around, cutting negativity, Dharma books, and so forth. So it's just like that kid cereal you used to have as a kid, Lucky Charms, where you pour it in, you have all the little marshmallow pieces of cute little things, same kind of thing inside of our body. While we recite the long Je Tsongkhapa mantra, Mig me se wei te chen chen rei zi, Dri me kien pe wang po jam pao yan, Du pun ma lu zhong se sang wei nan, Gan chen ke pe sun kian song ka pa, Lo zan ra pe sha bla so wan den, Mig me se wei te chen chen rei zi, Dri me kien pe wang po cham pao yan, Du pun ma lu jom se sang wei dan, Gan chen ke pe sun kian song ka pa, Lo san tra pe sha bla so wan den, Mig bei se wei te chen chen rei zi, Dri me kien pe wang po jam bao yan, Du pun ma lu zhong se sang wei dan, Gan chen ke pe sun kian song ka pa, Lo san tra pe sha bla so wa de. So upon finishing this, we can just sort of look inside ourselves and just at our heart now. It's like a little moon disc, like the size of a dime or something like that. Very, very small. And we can just feel that it's actually sitting inside this, about the same size, so it's like a quarter on a dime. Wrong way over, sorry, the dime on the quarter, which is a little moon disc on a 8 petaled white lotus made out of energy at our hearts. So make this request here. Glorious and precious fruit crew, please come to the lotus and moon seat of my heart. And in your great kindness, please remain with me. Bestow upon me the blessings of your body, speech, and mind. Glorious, precious fruit crew, please ascend the lotus and moon seat of my heart. In your great kindness, please remain with me and grant me the common supreme realizations. Glorious, precious fruit group, please remain the lotus and moon seat of my heart. And in great kindness, please remain with me, remain until I achieve the essence of enlightenment. While saying this, we can just do the absorption meditation. So we just feel that Dashita Pure Land starts to melt into golden light and dissolves into Maitreya. It becomes like a beautiful sun, and then just starts coming this way towards us, sort of gathering up all the clouds and melts into Je Tsongkhapa. Chapa Gaso and Kajipche now melt into light, like little sort of suns, and go inward into Je Tsongkhapa. And then just feel that Je Tsongkhapa melts into light and dissolves into Conqueror Vajradhara at his heart. And now all that's left is Conqueror Vajradhara. And he gets very, very small, starts to shrink, at the size of a little piece of corn or a sunflower seed or so, made out of pure energy, just like a little blue diamond or a sapphire. And rainbow lights are coming off him. You just feel that he is the sort of distillation, I guess you could say, or just the essence of all the Buddhas that we've been visualizing. In particular, Je Tsongkhapa, who's seen as Buddha of compassion, wisdom, and power, so Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, and Vajrapani, respectively. And all of this is sort of contained in the essence of Buddha's higher tantric form, of the Sambhogakaya form, Conqueror Vajradhara. So Vajra comes to the crown of our head. He's facing the same way we are. Enters our crown chakra. Very slowly starts to descend to our central channel. It's like if you have sort of a pipe and roll marble in it, like maybe not so jarring, but just the idea that it's sort of slowly kind of coming down. All made of lighter energy until it comes to the right in the center of our hearts, in the center of the moon disk and the lotus. And when you sort of slowly rest there, softly, feel that the lotus closes up. And it's sort of like just tying a little string to sort of close a lotus or a tulip bulb. 2 mantras, one clockwise, Amarapasanadi, Manjushri mantra, and one counterclockwise below it, Je Tsongkhapa is a short mantra there. Om Agra Vajra Samadhikriti Siddhi. And now just feel that that dissolves into us. All the wisdom, compassion, power of the Buddhas, all their enlightened qualities and so forth and powers go directly into us and we become one with them. And as they always say, pouring one glass of water into another glass. Just completely pure, faultless, no boundaries. Great experience of continuity. Then you can just take a moment to feel all the joy and the bliss. Bliss of an experience of totality and plenitude, nothing missing, no lack, satisfaction, rest, and joy in terms of a creative power, affirmative creative power, just in particular to go out and love and help all beings and to create. Okay, so coming out of meditation now. Okay, so let's just sort of attack the material this week here. So again, we're just kind of looking at Je Tsongkhapa's discussion. This is very brief, and I don't want to accuse myself of being superficial, but nevertheless, just a very sort of general and sort of introductory approach to this text, which is quite difficult. As I said, traditionally this book, and here it is translated by Professor Thurman, Central Philosophy of Tibet. They call this book the steel bow, like the bow and arrow made out of steel, because they say it's very hard to pull, but if you can pull it, in other words, if you can figure it out or get the transmission of the text, it's the most powerful weapon against your delusions and suffering, which is really beautiful. So we're just going over the stuff now from ACI course number 15, and then I've got all the notes I want to briefly go over and just have sort of some of my own insights, however good those are, into the text at the sort of end of the course from Professor Thurman's great introduction in that book as well. Okay, so just sort of recap a little bit from what we did last time. It's been a few weeks here. The 5 statements made from Lord Buddha. Nothing has a nature of its own. So nothing has a nature of growing or starting. 2, nothing has a nature of ending. 3, everything is peace, extinction from the beginning. 4, everything is gone beyond grief. And 5, nothing has a nature of its own. That's sort of the final quote that repeated. So these things mean, in this particular context of looking at the mind-only school, is that the first one, nothing has a nature of growing or starting. In particular, in the context here, is that constructs, the third kinds of being, or one of the third attributes of being, don't grow because they're not changing things. And emptiness doesn't grow because it's not a changing thing as well. So it's like the two things that don't grow. So basically what sort of grows, changes, is brought into meaning, falls apart, are dependent related things, changing things. So what is not a changing thing in this particular case would be emptiness, is the absence of inherent existence. So that isn't, we don't sort of think of that as an impermanent thing. It's like space. And constructs themselves, or sort of the conceptual imputations that we put, like our own, in the mind-only school, sort of fictitious images and meanings that we put onto things. These things are, because they're universals or concepts, they're not changing things in the same way objects are. They're not particulars, they're not impermanent. So like an apple can change, it can sort of grow on the tree, fall down and rot, but the concept of an apple doesn't. It's not like, and we can have it or not have it in our minds, or talk about it or not talk about it, but we don't feel that the concept of an apple will pass into non-existence and fade away like an actual apple rots, right? So there's a difference there. Nothing is a nature of ending, same kind of similar thing here. Emptiness and constructs aren't changing things. Everything is peace or extinction from the beginning. So dependent things, arising things, are afflicted. So what they mean by this here is that it's on the basis of changing things or impermanent things that we create these concepts or our constructs that we impute on them, and then we take these for being real, and then we suffer. Right, so we can sort of think of sort of by an analogy, like a little kid drawing a picture of a monster on the wall and then getting scared of it. So the changing sort of dependent things would be, the little crayon that I'm using on the wall, the white wall in my parents' house, even my activity of doing it, my intentions, all these sort of dependent things, then end up giving rise to a particular picture that then I am sort of impute an interpretation on it. And then I take that for being real, independent of all the factors that made it up. That this little monster, the picture that I drew, is scary and it's real and it's always been there and this and that, and it has a life outside of me creating it. It has a power over me and so forth. It's threatening to me and then scares me. So then the last two ones, like just everything is gone beyond grief. Dependent arising things are not beyond grief. They are suffering in the sense that, again, this idea that it's dependent things, the objects that our mind knows, are the basis for us creating our own suffering. Not that they themselves are suffering, they're just changing. But again, how I take them, how I interpret them, how I judge them with my constructs ends up creating the sense of self and world that I live in. And this alone, because it's based on ignorance, is a creation or basis of my suffering. Okay, moving on. 3 qualities of dependent things. Dependent things are an area where you create your constructs. That's, like we've said, where we put in the mind-only school. That's, we've got Alaya Vijnana, which truly exists, which is storehouse consciousness. And we have minds and their particular objects are changing things. These are dependent things. This here is what they call totality, or inherently existing, this particular mind. And in the middle, the third attribute, the third sort of type of existing things, are constructs, which technically in the big picture don't exist, as we've seen. They're sort of fictitious. They're products of the imagination. They don't actually stand for anything, stick to anything, are answerable to anything. And because this is precisely the thing that we take for being real, our own judgments, our own opinions, our own attitudes, our own conceptual map of the world, which we're so attached to, that's because it's fictitious. That's why we suffer so much. So dependent things are the area where we create our constructs. So technically, these constructs are always mediating our experience of dependent things. 2, dependent things are a place where your constructs stay, in the sense that our ignorance of taking our constructs for being real, it's always sort of stuck, like I always say, like cheese on a cheeseburger there. Like you sort of melt the cheese on the cheeseburger and then you kind of can't take it off. This is the case where we're not even realizing that our constructs are something that we made up, that they're actually not a part of the dependent things that they're standing in for or attached to. 3, dependent things exhibit the quality of making things happen. They are caused and caused other things, because they're all interrelated, all interdependent. It's a cause and effect, objects and subjects and objects. That's the realm of causality. And our construct realm is a realm not of causality. It doesn't exist. It's not a dependent thing. So in a lot of ways, like the famous analytic philosopher, the great American philosophers, 20th century, Wilfrid Sellars, drew a distinction between what he calls like the manifest image and the real image. So the real image of the world is sort of like the scientific realm that we study, the realm of causes, whereas the manifest image, the sort of everyday world we live in, the non-scientific world, is the realm of reasons, right, or intentions, which are quite different. So he always said, like, how do these two, his whole philosophy is that how do these two, it's a very Kantian exercise of, the things as they are for ourselves, things as they are in and of themselves, right, the noumenal and the phenomenal realm. So the question of how do these two things match up, that's his whole philosophy, which I have to admit I never really studied, so I don't know, I can't give a commentary on it. I know a lot of Buddhist scholars are really, the last year's really been using Wilfrid Sellars' work as a way of understanding Buddhist logic, in particular Dharmakirti, if anyone's interested in looking that up. But what I'm saying is that it's a similar thing, is a lot of philosophers influenced by Wilfrid Sellars will always say that, like, when they're looking at something, does this belong to the what they call space of causes or the space of reasons? Like, don't mix those two up because they're different. They're related, but they're not the same thing. So it's the same thing here with mind only. We've got dependently related things, just minds and objects and the world out here, and then our constructs, our concepts, our meanings, our senses, our judgments, these kinds of things. That's the space of reasons, you could say. It's not the space of causes. And so don't mix these up. It's precisely by mixing these up, was what mind only says, that we suffer so much. We take our constructs to be absolutely real. We take our constructs to be the world of dependent related things or interdependent things. We take our judgments, our ideas, to be the things themselves. We don't see that they go together dependently, right? That there's a mediation, there's sort of a filtering, or it's like I say, stickers stuck onto things, all right? We're just taking the stickers as being the things themselves. So that's important. Dependent things you imagine as changing things, okay, and those things you get, those things that get imagined as changing things, okay, we can look at that. Those things that change that function as an object, okay. So a little question here, Geshe Michael Roach says, is why didn't Buddha just define things simply as those things that change? Like, why don't we, just stick to like a Vaibhashika, like lower school emptiness and just say, hey, everything changes. Why do we need these three realms of like totality or lay vijnana storehouse consciousness, dependently related things, and constructs? Like, why complicate things? Hey, good old fashioned Abhidharma is good enough. Why have mind only school at all anyway? Why make it so complicated? More than one philosopher that I like would always say, kind of like Occam's razor, like even the famous American philosopher Quine always sort of said this, like when, figuratively speaking, it's just like when things start to get really complicated ontologically, there's a mistake, there's something wrong. And that's the thing, is that good old-fashioned Abhidharma Buddhism, Vaibhashika, is just so simple. Hey, things just change. We take them for being real. There's all the problems. And then all of a sudden, you have this very complicated Mahayana school, mind-only school, my goodness, with these really amazing philosophers like Asanga and Vasubandhu writing these big books. And, we got constructs, we got storehouse consciousness, we got seeds that create minds and objects. And it's like, hey, what's going on? How come everything got so complicated? If in the end everything just changes and everything's impermanent, why didn't Buddha stick with the simple fortune cookie message that we all get and we all like? That's all easy to use in our day-to-day lives. Why bring in the mind-only school? Like, if you think that Maitreya taught that in Tashita Pure Land over, like, I think a morning to Arya Sangha. He's been gone like 50 years in some kind of like astral trance, comes back and it's like has this big, oh my goodness, big philosophy, mind-only. Why are Buddha, Shakyamuni and Maitreya making everything so much harder on us? Well, they're getting, as Geshe Michael says, they're trying to illustrate a very important point, which is he expressed the relationship between changing things and constructs because he's trying to force you to see that in reality, changing things are actually just constructs of your mind. So there is kind of a quote-unquote hidden agenda here by positing the mind-only school that then ends up leading kind of dialectically to the middle way consequentialist school. The mind-only school is like, what's the relationship between words and things, between concepts and objects? That, in other words, if everything is changing, and yet technically it doesn't look like it's changing, because our concepts and words and the way we talk about things, everything seems to be staying the same. What is that? Like, what is that relationship? Why is that happening? That's an important thing to see. So what we're going to see is that the mind-only school is to make sure that we don't mistake the concepts for the things themselves. We have to see that there's a relationship there, a relationship of mediation, that first and foremost, we're interacting with our ideas or our words or concepts or judgments, right? So we have to be responsible for them. We're creating the world that we're living in. That we're not dropping a marble into a tin can. We're not being put into the world as it is in of itself. No, we're living in a symbolic universe we've created up through our own karma and our own judgments. So we're responsible for it, right? We're responsible for the mediation between us and the world, the sort of Kantian distinction between things, phenomenal things and noumenal things, between things as they are for us and how they are independently of our perceptions that we have of them, let's say, right? Now then, the next step is to go to the Madhyamika school, where basically all we have is the words and concepts. So what we want to do is to take out the truly existing things on the other, as my friend would say, on the other side of the alphabet, like on the other side of our words and concepts, that kind of hidden world we can't get to. Let's drop that off altogether and focus entirely on the symbolic world that we live in, right? That's the thing, because we take it as being real and not plastic, is why we suffer. So that's the super profound truth that Buddha wants to get you, and that's the truth of Tantra. So again, and why is that important? Well, you're just going to get enlightened quicker if you do it, rather than staying more at the Abhidharma level. So this is, the hidden agenda, the hidden present. It's like, you get a check for your birthday. Oh, wow, great, Mom and Dad, thanks very much. It's whatever, $50. But you don't know that if you flip the check over, like taped to the other side is another check for $1 million. Oh my goodness, wow, you really do love me, mom and dad. So that's the thing, is that people might say, well, why not just stick with the main side? Why am I looking for the other side of the check? $50 is good enough, which it is. It's great. But if we take a little bit more time, a little bit more effort, it's almost like maybe like trying to find a puzzle. Like at the end of the puzzle, you get a prize. You get the bigger prize at the end of it. So again, mind only is the construct between you and the object. We create, like Geshe Michael always uses, the pen, and then we mistake it for the real pen out there. The names and constructs we take for things are from our past lives karma. So you're making up the name for everything. So this is the big thing that, just read the further notes. Right now, you're restricted to everything you remember from the past, inventing, seeing the world from your own seeds, seeing things differently, new ways through the door of perfection of wisdom. Knowledge is to see the relationship between concepts, changing things, and emptiness. Perfection wisdom is you have to know you're creating the world around you, leap from the past to the future, what you're capable of being, which is a fully enlightened Buddha or deity. So this would be, like I always like to say, the Nietzschean switchover. One of my favorite philosophers, Gilles Deleuze, makes of the switchover from the concept of eternal return of the same to eternal return of the different. And what would that be? Well, it's kind of interesting, a similar thing. How people usually take the concept of eternal return of the same is Nietzsche, in a couple works like Zarathustra or Gay Science, das Frohe Wissenschaft, says, what if everything constantly repeated infinitely? Would you love life enough? Would you love your life enough, or love the world enough, that you would accept this without addition or subtraction? You would accept this wheel of things always occurring, eternal recurrence, the same thing happening to you over and over and over again, if your life was lived over and over again in the same way. All the good stuff, all the bad stuff, all the exciting stuff, all the boring stuff, all the ugly stuff, all the beautiful stuff. Would you accept it the way it is and love it and say, may it repeat eternally? Like, do I have the moral force, moral courage, the joy to accept this, to affirm it, like in a Stoic sense of may it necessarily be thus and never any other way? Do I have the courage to do this? Do I have the strength to do this? It's a test, right? So this is how most people normally take eternal return, the doctrine of eternal return, is to be eternal return of the same. Gilles Deleuze says basically what Nietzsche is getting is that what eternally repeats in his philosophy is impermanence itself, is the fact that things change themselves, is the flux and flow of life. And so if that's the case, what's eternally repeating is the fact that nothing eternally repeats, because everything's changing. If something repeated over and over again, it would be the same, which is completely discounted by Nietzsche's philosophy that everything is different. Everything is impermanent, everything's a particular, everything's changing, everything rises and falls away. So there can't be anything that's the same. So there can't be anything repeating that's the same. So if that's the case, everything is being created anew at each moment. So what Deleuze says is, rather than it being a question of the past repeating, this is pushing you to as Nietzsche calls it, untimeliness, and like almost outside of time, which is the time of the future, almost a messianic view, which is that what am I going to create if I affirm eternal return, not of the same, but of the different? Everything I'm doing at each moment is a creation, because everything's a creation, because everything's changing, everything's new, right? So let's look at it this way. From mind-only school perspective, objects and minds arise from the same karmic seed within the totality of mind, like Big Sky Mind or whatever, like Alaya Vijnana, right? That's the place where this happens as a process, because that's the place where the karmic seeds are kept. Okay, so that's interesting. So what you have is a karmic seed, the energy ripens to produce a mind cognizing an object, and then in between them is this judgment or interpretation, which is, your judgment. So basically, your judgment, your construct, right? But as we see, even in the Madhyamika school, what'll matter is that basically what's ripening in each moment is just the construct or the perception. So from a mind-only school, this doesn't exist. It's not real. But for the Madhyamika school, this construct is the only thing that's real. And how it functions is because it's impermanent or doesn't have any real reality to it is what allows it to be created. Anyway, it's another story ontologically. But what's interesting is that mind only is talking about the fact that all these perceptions that we have or constructs are coming from the past because they're coming from our karma. So in a lot of ways, we're being victimized by our own mind. We're sort of trapped in eternal return of the same. And this is one deep way of understanding, quote unquote, reincarnation or rebirth, is this idea that the whole wheel of the symbolic universe you're living in is the fact that you're constantly creating an echo of the same perceptions over and over again in a wheel that you're stuck in, a hamster wheel of samsara. All the perceptions, concepts, the whole symbolic world I live in is something I'm constantly creating and recreating without knowing it, because I take it for real and I'm reacting the same reactions, planting the same karmic seeds, which produces the same perceptions in a long line. So I'm constantly stuck in like a gift or video game because I keep making the same mistakes. Like, in a video game where you keep continuing, where you keep getting killed. And it's like, so imagine, like, what's nice, I remember, being old man, is they never used to have the continue function in old video games, right? So if you died, you have to repeat the same part of the game again until you got to the same spot where you died, right? So, you're pumping all these quarters in the arcade games in a store or something like that, or in the mall downtown, wasting all your parents' money they gave you as an allowance playing these video games, and you're stuck at that one spot. It was so frustrating, right? And then it came out the idea, well, will you continue? Got 10 seconds to put the quarter in, and I can continue where I left off. But imagine if, like with every video game, you had to keep restarting. So the point is, the stuff that you know how to do it already until you get to the point where you get killed because you've done it so many times in the video game, right? So the little guy jumps over the bridge, over the boulder, and swings on this thing and picks up the treasure. You're like going through it super fast. Then you get to the spot where you keep getting killed. It's like, oh, I can't figure out this part of the puzzle. It's a similar thing if you look at it with samsara, where you're constantly repeating the same dramas. Once I understand that this process is happening, how it happens according to perfection of wisdom, or how concepts work, or how constructs work, what happens, this allows me to take power over my life for the first time as I understand karma, and I can be a creator at this point. A creator. And why is this important? Well, I can recreate, in a sense of like, create a different symbolic universe to live in. And in this case, I can, rather than being in my own personal Matthew Richards mandala of samsara, I can be an enlightened mandala of a deity through doing different kinds of karmic actions, right? So that's the true message of the implications we draw from the mind-only school with how does these constructs, how does the symbolic mediating function of the world work? Right? So this is very, very profound. It'll automatically lead into more of a Madhyamika Prasangika things, that what's most important is my relationship between my karmic actions and the words and meanings that I'm working with, right? That's what creates the world I live in. Okay, there's a couple of other things that we could go on, like 3 kinds of constructs. Buddha says, like the construct about the essence of a thing, let's say car or carness, construct you construct about the features of a thing, which would be the qualities of the car, that it's blue, that it's long, that it's big. So basically, this is almost in good old-fashioned Aristotelian syllogistic logic, right? It's the idea between subjects and predicates, right? Which is a huge part of the debating that you get in the Gelugpa tradition when you're understanding logic. It's a huge thing of understanding these different kinds of concepts, because you're creating syllogisms, right? You're trying to draw inferences, right? There we go. That's but again, what's important for us in a more lay sort of taking kind of the consequence of this in a very simple way is that we're labeling things. Either we're talking about subjects, or we're talking about predicates, or we're putting these sort of concepts together. What's important is that we are doing this process. These things are coming from us, not from the world. And then the third kind of construct is the idea that, what Buddha talks about in this sense, is the object, let's say, like third kind of construct is mistaken to think that penness or pen is what we call pen comes from its own side. This construct is ignorance. Okay, so from the mind-only school, the fact that we think that our constructs are real independently of us having posited them or owning them, or that we're the source of their creation. Okay, so the emptiness here is the fact that there doesn't exist an object like a pen that could be called pen from its own side, right? Just exactly what I was saying here. Okay. I have here the interdependence of all these three attributes in the mind-only school, all three attributes of sort of dependent reality, constructs, and totality of Alaya Vijnana. All the existence of each supports the existence of the others. Okay, so in a lot of words, it doesn't just describe dependent things in isolation as things that cause or cause. He describes them in terms of their relationship to constructs. Dependent things are the base of constructs. They're mainly suffering causes of suffering. So again, what's important about mind-only school isn't isolating these three kind of spheres. Like, oh, let's just talk about Alaya Vijnana storehouse consciousness. Let's just talk about dependently related things. Let's talk about constructs. The whole point is that they're like together as a package. They only make sense in terms of one another. When we're talking about how what they call an aspect is cast from a dependently related thing or object into our minds, this is the construct that we deal with. We mistake it for the object itself. The whole point is to understand this whole process of karma, right? And then that alone gives you the message of you being responsible for your constructs, not mistaking them as being for the things themselves, of being inherently existent, coming at you, not from you. Then we get into more of a Madhyamika, Prasangika view of things. Then we get into Tantra, like I've said. That's like the big take-home message here of mind only. And finally, I just wanted to hopefully, there's a little bit of a note here on talking about the difference between existence versus identity. And I'm not going to get too much into this. There's probably 100 years of Western philosophy in the 20th century on ontology dealing with this. Like this is a huge issue. You've got a huge issue, let's say, in philosophy of the greatest what they call continental thinker, the 20th century, Martin Heidegger. The whole point is to understand what being is. What is the sense of isness? What does it mean to be, right? So he talks about, like let's say what he calls fundamental ontologies in being and time, right? Like being is best understood by us as humans, which are the ones that understand being in terms of time or presence. And how does something presence or show itself to you in terms of how I'm dealing with it functionally in terms of my self projects, right? How does something show itself to you? Well, was when I'm using it to do something. Anyway, that's like that. But then you've got basically all the ontology you get, starting with Frege and Bertrand Russell in terms of mathematical logic. What does it mean to exist? You end up having someone like Quine, probably the second most important English Anglo-American philosopher of the 20th century, still so unbelievably influential today, which basically famously says, being is being a bound variable. To be is to be a bound variable. So what's that? It's the idea to have sent. What does it mean to be? It means to exist in terms of how I can translate this into logic, how I can actually, something has the meaning in terms of a proposition, for instance, right? And that this proposition has a bigger whole within a sort of a whole world, a system of explanation of the world, right? Which for Quine, the best sort of way of doing this is through science, in particular mathematical logic, as it's tied to physics, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I don't like to have just a short little thing on the difference between existence and identity, 2 pages of notes, and thinking that somehow this is all there is to say about this. This is sort of endless. So just through my own conscience, I can't sort of make this out that this is something easily settled or easily talked about, because it's not. It's a huge philosophical issue. So what we want to look at is, how is this important in our everyday practice as Buddhists? Like, what's the sort of, even if I dare say, kind of like fortune cookie or kind of like little meme or whatever, what's the take home that I can have as sort of a very short practice that I can use to make my life a better Buddhist life? Okay, so notes I have here from Geshe Benko's question: when you think of a pen as being a pen naturally, which is of course ignorant and incorrect, are you think of something as being there which is not there? Thinking about whether or not it exists at all, or whether you're thinking of something in a way in which it is not. Thinking about what its identity is. In English, the verb to be is used to describe existence and identity, whereas in Tibetan, these two words, two different words are used, which is actually kind of interesting, because so much of the problem you get, which is something Heidegger would say, is being, he has a great quote, language is the house of being. In other words, how things are depends upon what kind of language you speak. And you can see this, is that the grammar determines how we understand things, how things show up or be for us. So the problem that you have, which is of course in English philosophy is a huge issue, as to be is used both for the concept of existence as well as identity. For in Tibetan, it's not. They separate these two, and for a very good reason, right? Other languages do that as well. So number one, it is not and it is. There is a table in the hall, or there isn't a table in the hall. Or two, it is not and it is. The speckled rope is not a snake, i.e. there is something there, but what is its identity? So this is the question that we want to draw a distinction from. It's the question of, like, how does something exist versus whether it exists. So the question of what is its identity, or what is its existence. So when you are mistakenly focused on the kind of construct that don't exist, constructs that exist from their own side, that are not just imaginary things, you are misidentifying the nature of the construct. The construct you are focusing on doesn't exist, but its identity is that of not existing by definition, and merely being an invention of your imagination. Your construct that focuses on essence, in other words, this is a pen, exists, and your construct that focuses on the features, that this is a blue pen, exists, but your construct that focuses on a pen that is what we call pen from its own side doesn't exist. The fact that a pen is what we call pen from its own side doesn't exist. The fact that the pen doesn't have an identity of having a construct related to it that exists by definition. So we aren't disputing the existence of a construct, the fact that that this pen is what we call pen. We dispute the identity of the construct, the fact that this pen is what we call pen exists by definition from its own side. Until you get Madhyamika, see your body and mind as constructs, Tantra won't work. Tantra doesn't work in mind only because the body and mind exist from their own side. Tantra, every time you have a single thought, okay, so this is just my little notes here on this. So in a lot of ways, what we're looking at is trying to draw the distinction between how something exists sort of by definition, and how it exists, in terms of its own identity. Things exist, but they don't exist. I want to make this, like, we have to see that things exist nominally. We can talk about, just like we said here, the fact that a pen is what we call pen from its own side doesn't exist. The fact that a pen doesn't have an identity of having a construct related to it exists by definition. So things exist, constructs exist, their existence exists in the sense that, we can talk about them. I don't want to get sort of confused here. We can talk about constructs, we can talk about names and words and concepts. We can talk about the essence of a thing. We can talk about features of the thing. These things exist, okay? They don't exist by definition, but the point is they do exist. We're not denying those things, right? We're not denying those kinds of judgments. But what we are denying is whether these judgments are truly real, independent of them being just judgments, right? In other words, the pen is a label, does exist. But the point is, the pen that's the label, isn't the object we're talking about. There's a difference between the two, that the pen and the label, the fact that we can, the label and the object, that we misattribute them, we put them together, we think they're exactly the same thing existing apart from our mind, that's the mistaken thing. So why this is important is we never want to deny existence. We don't want to deny the virtuality of existence. What we want to deny is the ignorance, the ignorant view of existence. That's the view that's constantly making us suffer. This is the view that keeps us within samsara. But again, there are objects, there are words, there are concepts. These things exist, but the point is they're not identical with the objects themselves, right? They're coming from us. So that's the difference between existence and identity. I hope that was fairly clear. Again, just going over it again. Number one, this is the differences here. It is and it is not, and it is. So in other words, when we're talking about this form of isness, for instance, there is a table in the hall or there isn't a table in the hall. In other words, is the existence of something, it's either there or it isn't. Like, is the cat, the famous analytic philosophy example, is the cat on the mat? Either the cat is on the carpet or it's not. Oh, it's in the car. We're taking him to the vet or something, right? That's a question of existence. A question of identity would be, it is not and it is. The speckle rope is not a snake. In other words, my garden hose that looks like a sort of a green snake, kind of like a green Mojave rattlesnake in Arizona, the one my mom was always scared of. That's the question. Is that when I'm mistaken? Oh my God! At night, I'm going to step on and get bitten. No, wait a minute. That's just my garden hose that I left out. That's the question of identity, right? Let's not mix these two things together. Let's not think that they're the same thing. That's where all the ignorance comes from. When you are mistakenly focusing on the kind of construct that doesn't exist, constructs that exist from their own side that are not just imaginary things, you are misidentifying the nature of the construct, right? The construct you are focusing on doesn't exist, but its identity is that of not existing by definition, and it's merely being an invention of your own imagination. So again, it's always the same thing as where we're taking things we imagine, in other words, that our mind is creating to be the things themselves. We just have to see that they do exist just as fictions, right? So we can talk about, for instance, Sherlock Holmes exists as a fictitious, Harry Potter exists as a fictitious character, right? But we don't think that Harry Potter truly exists, that there's a Harry Potter out there running around somewhere, right? So, but when we say Harry Potter doesn't exist, we're not saying that Harry Potter books don't exist, the whole world of J.K. Rowling or whatever her name is called doesn't exist, or that, let's say, something like Lord of the Rings doesn't exist at all. No, it does exist. It does exist fictitiously, right? Or in terms of literature or metaphor or anything or symbols, but it doesn't truly exist independently of our own minds and to our own literary circle, our own view of how sort of language or literature works. So that's important, is because we don't want to deny the world. We don't want to deny changing things. We don't want to deny things. What we want to deny is sort of an ignorant judgment that we have on things that we're always doing, where we're thinking our own creations, our own products are real independently of ourselves, right? And again, it's really, really funny that that's what we do as sentient beings, right? We're always taking just our own imaginations to be real. And again, not real in sort of virtual way, but real in a substantial way, independent of us, having nothing to do with how we created it, coming at us, unrelated to us, these kinds of things. And that's the source of our suffering. Okay, so that's quite a lot of material. I'm just trying to sort of got another few classes here before we're done. I just wanted to try and get a little bit of, get as much done as possible today and a bit of review from last week as well. Okay, so thank you so much. Let's just take a moment to dedicate this. Blessings of all holy beings, the truth of karma, the power of our superior intention, or bodhicitta, may our dharma wishes be fulfilled. So in particular, let's really dedicate this towards understanding this material, that we have a correct view of how to realize emptiness by understanding the mind-only school and Madhyamika school, understanding karma, understanding constructs, understanding how emptiness works. Again, that we become enlightened, that we lead all sentient beings to the same state. Okay, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.